your beliefs of the election be stolen? Thank you for your question. I look forward to answering.
Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. So, 5 segments, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, 2 guests, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, this week, I think we're going to need more cocktails than usual. How are you doing?
I'm tired. I say this every week, but it is something to get to Friday. And I'm somebody who works through a weekend. So there are no real Fridays in my life. As a writer, as you know, we write all the time. But boy, I feel like a lot happened.
Well, we were off for a week.
And then we were off the week before. So we really thought, oh, we'll catch up, we'll rest. No, we were still slam banging it all the way to the last second here to come on air. So it's wonderful to be here, and it's good to see everybody in the comments. I hope you guys all had a lovely election, 2-week election result, because it took 2 weeks for those results to come in. That was something. Yeah.
Which we kind of knew, I think maybe last week we'd be like, well, we don't know yet what's going to happen. And now we have a little bit of an idea. I feel like I've spent the last 2 weeks just basically hating on Elon Musk in my mind. Like, I didn't know it was possible to hate someone more than I hate Trump, but then Elon Musk is like, hold my Zima or whatever he drinks, some, tech bro drink. And, the thing that's the most rotten about
my microdose. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The thing that's the most rotten about him, I'm just going to say up front, I know we're going to talk about this later, but, it's this whole eugenics business where he wants to like sire the universe with his seed and have like as many kids as possible. I'm just going to say for the record, if you're a guy and you think that that's a thing, you're not a good person. You're just a bad person. And I'm just not behind whatever it is you're doing, because it's not that great, dude. You're not, I
feel like also something happened with their PPs when they were little with their something. Yeah. It seems like a very adolescent sort of regressive or arrested thing around your stuff, and understand. It just feels, as a woman, it's like icky. Like, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with you and your relationship with your everything. So I don't know.
I don't like it. And I propose that, how Genghis Khan, the Mongol lord, had like all these kids, and then like something like half of Asia is related to him distantly now as a descent, right? So I propose that we call Elon Musk Genghis Khan, but we spell it C-O-N, because he's a big fucking con man. That's it.
He's a big con man. We're going to get into that later on.
I know we are. I'm excited for it.
We've got some fun stuff for you guys tonight. Let's start with, what are you drinking?
This is a Manhattan.
That's the standard for you.
I usually I drink one of these a week during the show, but as you know, Sunday was my birthday, and I had a party, and I don't know how many of these. I think 4, 5, too many. So I'm still like, this is hair of the dog a little bit, like 6 days later.
I know, it's amazing how much time it takes to recover now that you're 50. Once there's a 5 in front of there, Leo.
I know.
This is how it goes. All right, I'm just having Diet Coke, everybody. There's nothing in here. There probably should be, but I went out last night because it was my anniversary. So we had a good time, but here we are. And I think we should just dive right in.
Let's dive right in.
We've got a lot we've got to get to tonight. It's, again, good to see everybody. Happy that our Twitters were still up and working this morning. And that and we've got, I think, some new people coming in here. So that's a lot of fun too. All right. This is what we do. We set a timer for the new people. 8 minutes. Go. Greg Goliai.
All right. Well, as you see, dotting one I, crossing one T. That's the topic, which is a little bit cryptic. And what do I mean by that? Merrick Garland has been crossing the I, crossing the T's, dotting the I's for 18 months now. We've been waiting for some activity, and he had one more I to dot and one more T to cross. And that's because the word Smith has one I and one T in it. So now we have a special counsel. And when I heard this news this afternoon, I went through basically the Kubler-Ross, denial, that whole thing, in about an hour, because as I'm sure most people watching this, my first response was, what a spineless coward this guy is. What a jellyfish. He's just punting on this. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't have the gumption to go do his job, and arrest this guy, this obvious criminal. Okay. Yeah. And a guy that I know, a lawyer that I know, who a friend of mine who is a litigator, we were talking about the documents, and he felt kind of the same way. And he sent me this. He said, meaning Garland's prosecutors, high-level counterintelligence folks, presented evidence that they have probable cause a crime was committed. They got a warrant based on that information. Because of Judge Cannon, we know they have seized the fruits of that crime. We know there is such evidence. To punt the charging question to someone else is pure cowardice. Any dude who passed the bar could charge and win that case. It's like strict liability. The docs are classified. You have them. You're guilty. It's a one-witness case. The FBI agent who performed the search. What did you find? A whole lot of documents that belong to the government. Your witness. It's that easy. So, it's like, come on now. But after settling down and kind of reading through all the legal Twitter stuff, it is evident now that there are good reasons for doing this. Starting
what
with,
are they? Let me hear, because I'm not going to bash.
Okay.
I don't care. This isn't. I'm too. It's taken so fucking long. I'm about to go. You have a different number in front of your decade of the years you've been on this planet. That's how fucking long this has taken. Go ahead.
Special counsel within a special counsel within a special counsel, like nesting Russian dolls behind me on the shelf, right? No. Okay. So the first thing is, I tweeted before the guy's name was announced, which long retired Republican are they going to get to be the special counsel? And no, the guy's like 51 years old. He's Gen X, man. It's not some guy from 2 decades ago that's, well past his prime. This is somebody like right in the peak of thing. And this is his name is Jack Smith, which is the most anonymous name. It's almost the guy from the Matrix. It's like we're at that point where a guy named Mr. Smith coming to Washington, now the simulation is in danger of breaking down. So we have a guy and by all indications, if you read about him, he's good. He's a good prosecutor. He's not some fancy pants. He doesn't, as far as I know, he did not work at a boutique law firm for Gazprom. I think he's okay. I think he's, he was a prosecutor at The Hague. He was an assistant U.S. attorney, whatever. And, he's easy on the eyes. That's great. Now when we have press conferences,
I haven't seen him.
It might be fine. It might be worth looking at, Okay. Not that matters, but it's not bad, right? Okay. It's important that it's apolitical. This is supposed to be apolitical. And what that means is, even though Trump would do it and the Republicans would do it, and Trump is such an obvious fucking crook, it really shouldn't matter. We can't have a situation where Biden's guy, a guy who's Biden's, direct report is prosecuting or indicting the guy that Biden's running against, because that's what they do in Brazil and Turkey and places like that. We don't want to have that. So this creates, that layer of space, which is what we need. Okay. All of the people that Asha was for this. Peter Strzok thinks it's a good idea. There's people that I like and that I respect a lot. Allison Guild had a whole laundry list of things right from the gate. launching into these reasons why this is a good thing. As many people pointed out, Steve Bannon had a fucking meltdown today. That's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
That's a very good sign. And, as my friend wrote, this thing is open and shut. So it may be that they're just ready to indict this fucker like soon. If this guy, this Jack Smith guy, he doesn't have to wait until all the crime charges are, just hit him with the obvious one, get him on the defensive, and then take your time with the rest of the stuff if you need to. The main thing is indict him for the obvious crime that he committed, which is stealing the classified documents and bringing them to his resort in Florida where people claim to be Rothschilds and hang out. It's bad. Crawling with spies. That's it. So, again, in the final analysis, all that matters is that the guy is indicted. So if we're still here 6 months from now waiting, this is an epic fail, but we'll wait and see. I mean, it's not bad. It's not it's not the punt that I originally thought it was.
Maybe there'll be some 7 special days of Hanukkah. I'm not sure. Okay, so the only thing I have to say about all that, well done. Thank you for informing us of that. I think everyone's been on that roller coaster, but not quite ending up in the same place, maybe.
We'll see.
Jury's out. I would say in terms of generationally and this sort of the CV, right? And it looks like a person that da. And the friends, everybody's sort of legal Twitter and experience going, oh no, it's a serious person. This is great. Don't worry, and it'll go this way. No. I just have 2 words for you. Rod Rosenstein. So I've been down this. Not that he was special counsel, but he was certainly overseeing it. We've been through this before. I've been down this road before where we're just supposed to, and I don't want to tear down the institution, but I don't have blind faith in any of these motherfuckers anymore. We've now seen excruciating caution in the name of whatever everybody makes up it being in the name of, because it never came out of Garland's mouth why he was so cautious. It's just what people on legal Twitter are making up about why, he's cautious because of this and he has to do this. And they're just putting all that in there. But, walking at the pace of a elderly sloth from the Mastodon era is what we've been dealing with this guy. We don't know why he's been, but if it is cautiousness, I would say the line between cautiousness and outright fear is as thin as they come when it's been this much caution, this carefulness, this dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's down to the footnotes from, the predecessor 1920 laws asshole footnote. We're going to pull that out and make sure we addressed the memo and any of the memos. So when you're coming from a place of fear and convincing yourself it's cautiousness, there's never going to be the action necessary. There's always going to be a justification and a rationalization for why you did not act, because you're coming from a place of fear. So if that's where he was coming from and now somebody else can step in and they're going to come from a place of actual justice and action, great. If he was always coming from a place of no fear but justice and this is how we're going to, then great. Time will tell. We're still back in the time will tell.
Yeah.
We're just waiting on Garland.
Not anymore. Now we're waiting on Jack Smith.
Well, now we're waiting on Jack Smith.
Yeah.
All right, Jack Smith. Let's get to know you now.
His real name is
Apparently,
John.
we need 2.5 years to get to know you. So, you've got time, baby. That's all I have to say. You got time for legal Twitter. Legal Twitter is going to be dead and gone by the time we figure out any of this shit.
Legal Twitter might be dead and gone by the Twitter part of it might be dead and gone before this broadcast is up.
It might be. All right. I'm already starting the next clock. I don't even. Sorry.
That's fine. Dave Chappelle was on Saturday Night Live. He gave a monologue, which apparently was not cleared by. He did the old bait and switch on live TV, which I'm sure Lauren Michaels really loved. You have some thoughts about this, LB. So what are those thoughts?
I did have some thoughts about this. I know it's not, we'll get into all the rest of the fire hose of crazy that's happened this past week, but I didn't want this one to kind of go by because there's very few comedians who have earned the gravitas in a very specific space that Dave Chappelle has earned. I'm not saying he's still there. I didn't like anything, but there's a parallel to what he just did with what he did with the trans community that's worth talking about when it comes to humor and his particular kind of humor. So he's in the George Carlin camp. He just is, everybody. It doesn't matter what anyone's opinion about all that. This is intellectual comedy. There are people who tried to be in there and maybe touched on moments of it, like Bill Maher, but he couldn't stay in there, right? You've got to really be sort of legendary in your talent, in your skill set, and your insight to enter that and occupy that space in comedy and hold it and keep coming fresh with it, right? And that's key, right? And because you're coming from intellectual storytelling, you're taking people on a journey through a thought process to actually wake them up in some way or change their thinking or have them walk away going, wow, okay, I'm kind of thinking of stuff a little bit differently because a comedian, you're not just laughing, you're thinking, you're processing, you're reframing. And that's him, right? So what's the responsibility of someone in that place? Is the responsibility of somebody in that space to just start doing fart jokes or going to tropes? Maybe. I mean, I'm not, you can do that, but you lose your place. You lose your place because you're lazy, because it's not intellectual anymore, because it's not an exercise of the current moment. And so of all of the issues, and I had so many people I saw were just so upset because he has that power, right? Of people are listening to him, not just to laugh, but to sort of learn how to think. And that part of the ball he dropped, and he dropped it in a very sly way. So he came in through Kanye. And I refuse to call him Ye. He's Kanye, whatever.
Right.
I don't know. I don't care. I don't care what he calls himself. He came in through the shoeless dude, right? The dude that doesn't have a shoe deal anymore. He came in through the anti-Semite, the clear anti-Semite, right? And we didn't really know where he was going to go because he has an avenue to come in there. He's literally using the thing that a Jewish comedian could do if they wanted to go, right? He's doing that. He's got his thing. If you're going to touch on race, sex, in terms of all the flourishes of gender and whatnot, or religion or anything is your bucket, you have authority to do that if you're talking about the group that you're a part of. I can talk about women. I could talk, Dave Chappelle can talk about Black men, and he could talk about the Black American experience. Not that I couldn't talk about that, but I don't have any cred there. He's got cred, so we'll listen, and maybe he can open up our eyes. So he came in through Kanye and through what seemed like a criticism of Conway. It was a real sneak attack, right? And then he ends up in the tropes about the Jews controlling Hollywood and making a joke about it. And the joke was funny. I'm not going to say it wasn't funny. It's just a step back from the space that I would like to see him continue to occupy. Now he's just in the hate joke camp. Whether you want to accept that or not, he is. So here's why. Because it's true. We can't get away from the truism and of history that the American Jewish diaspora created an industry that I work in, and it provides for my family, and that I also enjoy, and everybody else that enjoys television and film enjoys it. Music, it's a little I guess we can throw that in there a little bit, but really television film. How can I do this? Because this is the history that I actually study and that I write about. And little sneak, it's the stuff that's coming in the next season of the huge historical podcast that I do is about who actually created Hollywood and why, and where that came from and what got distorted in it. But this is from the 1920s. This is the 20s and the 30s, and yes, that there was a closed network of who could control creating the content, making the content. There, it was very much within, not because there's some secret control cabal thing, but because it's an industry that was just really engineered and created with nothing preceding it, and it predominantly by one group of American individuals who were at that time in America, everything was pretty segmented, and there wasn't a lot of space for the Jewish immigrant community to occupy and sort of run with something. They're just like there hasn't been that space for women leaders, right, until recently, just like there hasn't been that space for Black men and the Black community, Black women especially, to come into an industry. And so where you have little openings where maybe you can make something, and get yourself out of your struggle, and also have something that goes broad and is joined, and you can hire people, and you can create employment, you can create income, you can create. People are going to do that. I don't care where you're from. People are going to do that. That's what they're going to do. That's where they're going to go, because that's where they can work. And so because it was an industry that didn't come out of film schools came after. It was not like a degree you could go get. There wasn't, that didn't exist. So who are you going to hire? You're going to hire your family, your friends, right? Somebody someone from here, that's just how it grew. The fact that it stayed so sort of hard to penetrate for any outsider, myself included, up until that is true. That went on far longer than it should have or could have, but not because there was anyone, we have to keep control. And it just, shit got big, and then it lumbers, and it's hard to sort of change. So there's this idea that because you have a population of people who created an industry, that there's somehow still these strings of control keeping people out because they're different, is fucked up and wrong. It's just not current. It's not the situation, especially the last 15 to 20 years. It's not. I'm in it. I can tell you it's not. And there was way more happening against women having voices in certain spaces. Like, try being a sci-fi writer in 2005. That was fucking impossible for tentpole movies for a woman. Now we've got it, right? Great. But not because people were controlling. It's just because there a lot of folks got their jobs and their position because of who they know, including screenwriters. It's not that they were any better. They just knew somebody. And it just is an industry that evolved that way. And now finally it's changing. So why do I come back to putting this on Chappelle and how I introduced him and how I think about him? Because that was fucking lazy, man. That was a lazy joke. It's lazy to go to a trope. It just is. So I can't look at him. He's going to have to come forward and do something. And for that to come on the heels of his jokes about the trans community and how and their reaction to that, because they're in a contemporary moment. Remember, this is supposed to be a contemporary thinker. So the contemporary moment for the trans community is, if you put that shit out there, real violent acts are going to happen to trans people. There's not a distance between this. We can do a direct correlation. So you want violence to happen? Be lazy, do those jokes. I almost could sort of get past that if there was something fresh, but he didn't bring in something fresh. He's following that up with what turns out to be violent tropes against Jewish people, because it is all about, they're all controlling. That's not happening. And in this moment, we have a rise of anti-Semitism and violent against Jews, my family, in this nation right now and globally, that the Jewish community is going, oh my God, it's worse than it's ever been. Holy shit. This is terrible. So the responsibility comes in even more, because the actual current moment is volatile and shit has changed. So tell me what it was again about that comedy set that was fresh, because I'm not seeing nothing. I got zero respect for that. That's what I want to say. I'm open to having respect again But come on, dude. Like, put a little effort into it. That's all I have to say. And then when you're looking for that, okay, well, who do we need? I look at him and I looked at that set, and the first line that came to my head, if I was writing this in a script, which is my profession to keep it fresh, would be, he's no Dave Chappelle. What do you expect? That's it. Time for some karaoke.
That's good. I thought I was going to say that you're no Dave Chappelle. I thought that was
but I didn't have time to get my brain straight to set you up with the line.
Okay.
And
I was waiting. Let the record show. I was waiting.
You were waiting.
I had my line. I was like halfway through. I'm like, oh fuck, I have a line I'm supposed to say. What is the line? Is it you're not Dave Chappelle or you're no Dave Chappelle?
Yeah.
He's no Dave Chappelle. Even Dave Chappelle is no Dave Chappelle.
I stepped on the line that I wrote.
That's okay. I do that all the time.
That's okay. They're not paying me the kind of money they're paying him.
No, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
Okay. So
sorry. Upset. That's my upset for the week.
That's your upset. Good job. Yeah. And then and good to talk about something, that isn't the usual chaos and horror.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to think about. Okay. It's time now for 5/8 karaoke. And here we go.
It's all
Carrie Lake, rattlesnake. Carrie Lake, I'm sorry, but Katie Hobbs got more votes than you. Carrie Lake, I'm sorry, but you make a better Elvis than a governor. Carrie Lake, Carrie Lake, Carrie Lake, your ugliness came through the soft, soft lighting. Carrie Lake, you suck like the vacuum you used before Trump came. Carrie Lake, big mistake, there was too much at stake.
I haven't seen it yet.
You hadn't seen it yet? I didn't have time to do a lot of extra stuff I wanted to do.
It just appeared. I don't know. There's that Genesis song that's I always thought until this week was Paper Lake. But apparently it isn't. It's Paper Lake, but whatever. Okay. I couldn't play all the brass instruments, so it is what it is. Good job on the animation. Okay, moving along. We have two guests and we're keeping them waiting, which is rude by us. Okay.
Yeah.
Our first guest, he writes political ads, does PR, fundraises via his 900,000 member email list, Blue Amp Action for Democratic candidates, progressive causes. He wrote ads for Joe Biden's winning presidential campaign in 2020, a best-selling book, The Real McCain, and created the original digital PR program for Michael Bloomberg's Every Town for Gun Safety. He raised over $800,000 for Democrats this cycle online. Yeah. You can find him and should subscribe to his popular YouTube commentary channel, The Takedown. Cliff Schecter, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I finally made it on here. How you guys doing?
We are okay.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I mean, great. Now that I heard that song, I was going to just sort of sit here. I mean, if you could see behind me back, well, can you see the drums back there? I was just going to go get on the drums and start sort of, giving you some percussion for that.
Oh, I didn't know you were a drummer. That. This is okay. We gotta have you.
Well, not a very good one. My son's really the good drummer. I'm the guy that messes around with it when he's not here. But
that's fine. I'm not a good guitar player, so we have that in common.
All right, excellent. But that was some good stuff you guys had going on there. Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, welcome to the 5/8. This is what we do here.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I think Cliff and so everybody knows Cliff and I have been talking, and we've been trying to find a time for you to come on and all that. And decided sort of. All right, after the midterms, because it was just crazy busy for you, as it was for everyone. So we really just want to hear, because it's been since before we took we did the last show before the election, and then we took that Friday off, and I just want to get because we can all get in the moment and get fired up about what's happening today, and just sort of reassess what happened, with the midterms, how was it? What can we look at in terms of it being monumental? If there is something monumental, what did maybe people celebrate that they shouldn't have celebrated? And what are we looking at now, Cliff, that we got the results that we got? What does it really mean?
Those are some quality questions. All right.
Yeah.
So let's start with it was absolutely monumental because you have to judge it within the context of history. And the context of history is the president has a party, I'm sorry, if the party has a president in power, you get your butt kicked. That's generally what happens. Well, usually worse to Democrats because we suck at messaging, but that's a whole other story. And, because the media doesn't believe in actually telling people, vanilla is vanilla and chocolate is chocolate. Everything is sort of like, oh, yeah, I know Carrie Lake, had a live human sacrifice, but Katie Hobbs said shit. So, they're equal. I know I'm exaggerating for effect and I'm being the asshole I am and joking, but the truth is that's like the media in our Constitution, their job, and you've probably seen me go off on them a lot because I've gotten to a point where you pass that line where you get so pissed that, and I know some of these folks because I grew up with some of them and went to some of the same schools, and fuck them, I don't care anymore. I'm exhausted by the pretending that everything is sort of okay and everything is equal. No, like your job in the Constitution, the only reason you fucking exist or need to exist is so that you can create an informed public who then can make decisions based on what you tell them so that we can actually have functioning self-government. And you don't do that. You create this bullshit, as I like to say to people, be like if pick whoever. If the Jets, well, they suck. But okay, actually, they're not bad this year. But okay,
they're going to be in first place after tomorrow. Okay,
they are. That's true. So I got to shut up. I'm a New Yorker originally, so I'm a Giants fan, so I like to do. But okay, so the Jets are playing, the Patriots, and the New York Times is writing about it. And they're like, well, on the one hand, the Jets scored more points, but on the other hand, the Patriots gained more yards. So we're not sure who won the game. I mean, that would be the way you would cover sports the way they cover politics. So with all of that, that as a backdrop, we picked up, and I think there's one or two others now that may, is it New Hampshire, State House and State Senate, that like one of them I think may have flipped with like all these counts going, but we picked up both the State House and State Senate in Michigan, both of them in Minnesota, the State House in Pennsylvania. Why does that matter? We hadn't done that since FDR when a president was in office, 1934. That's fucking crazy. We won numerous congressional races where we had little to no chance. We almost beat fucking Bobo the Clown. I thought for a while there we had her. It's amazing what happens when you have a crazy right winger who's in a state that Democrats control, so they can't suppress votes. Like she has to exist in Colorado, unlike most of the other crazies that get to exist in Georgia and places where they control the electoral machinery. But I digress. So we're going to end up probably picking up a Senate seat because, Brian Kemp got 210,000 more votes than Herschel Walker. Think about that for a second. And because, what does Georgia have? 8 million people, 9 million people, 210,000. A lot of people went out and voted for Kemp and they still couldn't bring themselves to vote for Walker. Right. I'm not saying anything good about Kemp, by the way. He's just very good at pretending that he's like, a moderate white guy when he's a
moderate good old boy. Yeah, he plays that good old boy thing, and that will always work. It will.
Well, certainly in the South, it works. Yeah. But Herschel Walker, like all these folks that probably pulled the lever for him because they turned out for Kemp, they're not going to turn out now. Whereas we will because we love Warnock. We're not just turning out for like a majority. Warnock is literally the best among us. Warnock literally bestrides the pulpit where MLK once stood. I mean, like if you can't get your ass out to vote for that, I don't know what you can. So it was monumental because the truth of the matter is that we had so much going against us and we should have gotten our butts kicked, and Generation Z saved us. The Gen Zers got politicized by a lot of it was the Dobbs decision. But like, I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I realized at some point my 16-year-old was, and I remember when this happened because we were scared like normal parents would be, was 5 when Newtown happened. And so like we've got this generation now that has grown up doing these ridiculous fucking drills at school because our politicians won't do the things that every other civilized country has done that show that we could knock this stuff down by about 70% at least, the amount of gun violence, but we won't do it. So they've grown up with that. They're watching what's going on with the climate. They're not stupid. They can watch. They can look at any news source and see how much worse things are getting. The Dobbs decision, this kind of stuff, being told what books they can read and who they can love, and they turned out and so all these, all the Nates, if you will, who are sitting there and have done to politics what they've done to baseball, which I love. So I hate them for both, which is taking things that were totally like only run by fat guys with guts who didn't understand numbers, but now taking it too far in the other direction where they don't believe there's any human factor. Everything is, you're just an automatron. Everything's numbers.
Yeah.
Like, things like confidence, fear, there aren't actual emotions that exist because I don't think Nate Silver actually has any. So like they think everything else works that way, and that's not the way everything else works. Experience, like I've worked on numerous presidential races, matters, right? Knowing certain things because you've seen them before and certain patterns, it matters, right? Not everything can be a number. So, these guys kept sitting there with their stupid polling, and I sat there and I was looking at the registration numbers of Gen Z and what they'd done in Kansas and New York 19 and flipped polls by 10 points. And I was like, I think it's gonna be pretty close, and I was like, I think we probably lose the House because they've gerrymandered so ludicrously. I mean, if there hadn't been the Florida, Texas, whatever, New York,
the New York is what
we got shot down.
Yeah.
Hochul tried. She tried.
Yeah, we would have held the House if it weren't for that. And here in Ohio, where I live, we passed a constitutional amendment, and what they kept doing was being in contempt of court and slow walking it till they ran out the clock, because this is what they do. So I'd say the lines got about 25 to 30% better. We probably picked up a House seat here in my area. Great congressman, and knocked off one of the insurrectionists, Chabot, and elected a really good guy, Greg Landsman. So that probably was helped by the constitutional amendment, but we should have picked up 3 seats at least, and we picked up 1. So, I mean, they cheated the way they always cheat, and so they didn't really pick up the House. I mean, in the end, like, they will have it, but, I see somebody in the chat here who's right. I mean, Andrew Cuomo screwed us all, by sitting there and putting in Republicans. I don't get me started on Andrew Cuomo. So, I mean, if you want to, I mean, I guess the whole big answer to that question is like, this was truly historic. It was incredible, the forces we were up against. And look, in the context also of where we're sitting right now, we have people, who are openly clamoring for violence, that are considered to be mainstream Republicans, that are part of their base, that are, and in the face of all of that, our folks, turned out and voted and turned back to a large degree a fascist threat. Now, look, it's still there. They said they've got the Supreme Court and they do have the House. Although, God, I hope I will see where it shakes up. I hope they don't get any more seats. I want them to have like Kevin McCarthy to have a 2 or 3 seat majority and just, all the knives to come out. Although, as I've said for a while now, I'm not even convinced McCarthy's going to be the leader. Andy Biggs just came out today and said he will not support him. Matt Gaetz has said he will not support him. Get a couple more of them. And like, I already saw Don Bacon, who's from Nebraska, who, again, let's face it, this is all like just in comparison to today's Republican Party. Don Bacon would have been a right winger 20 years ago. Compared to today, he's sort of a mainstream conservative, almost moderate conservative. He said, which was pretty much him saying, I'm not voting for Andy Biggs or one of those nuts. He was like, if Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes, I'm going to go talk to Democrats about power sharing. I mean, we legitimately have a shot at a House where there's power sharing. So if you can't be pleased with that sort of turn, that end sort of result with what was going on. I mean, last thing I'll say, and I'm talking too much here. I mean,
no.
It should.
Well, you're on.
True, but I don't have to be Mitch and filibuster, do I?
Yes, you do. This is your segment.
Okay, fine. No. At least I don't have to look like Mitch.
You don't have to look like him, and you don't have to feel guilty about it or apologize.
There you go. I have to at least sort of transform into a snapping turtle or something.
There you go.
So I mean, the thing is I mean, while all of this was kind of this historic victory, we're still going to have to deal with a number of these forces, and this is far from over. And you guys are talking about the sort of Merrick Garland situation today, and I have my own feelings on that, but maybe you've covered it already. And so, it's a fight going forward, but like, I don't think many people had the faith that we would be in this thing. And if we had gotten trounced in 2000, in a 2010 or 2014 kind of way, or 1994, like, we'd be in bad shape right now. I mean, we'd be in really bad shape in terms of what they'd be able to do. So, fighting chance, I'll take it.
Fighting chance. Great. And then I think the other thing to think about is with the sort of always this is the thinking of, okay, the sitting president, whoever has at that party in the midterms, that stuff flips and da. The other factor could come in there with that whole thing was the approval rating, right? And that was also based on polling. And we have one of these wonderful followers, one of our great followers, Sharon Diamond, who's in here. She was the first person that brought it, that I saw say, wait a minute, why are we, if we know the polls were all off for who was going to get in to power because they weren't reaching Gen Z and they clearly weren't reaching women voters, why are we trusting the same polls when it comes to approval ratings? So I wanted to get your...
And we absolutely shouldn't be. Yeah. I mean,
okay. So you're in this business. What the fuck? Is it the oldest fucking system ever? Is it like, what is this polling system that churns out, that allows a robotic Nate Silver, who, by the way, is close friends with Paul Manafort's daughters and got his shit out of the gaming booking. He's like, I'm not going to trust that. I'm sorry. I've never trusted that. But, what?
I don't trust anybody who can't doubt themselves for a second. All right. Like, I'll sit here and say, I got some shit wrong. I got a fuck of a lot more right than Nate Silver did. But, I got some things wrong, and, me, and I made mistakes, and we all do. And admit them and be an adult. When anybody is, so I don't care what side of it they're on, when they believe their own press all the time, I start doubting them because I don't trust their judgment at that point. Right. I'm sorry, but you wanted to ask me.
In other words, he can't tell the signal from the noise, is what you're trying to say.
Very well played.
There's not a human being in there to discern. So possibly, in terms of like normal neural pathways.
Right.
So
he's a cybernetic organism.
Exactly.
He can come back in 20 years and, and save Sarah Connor and
there we go. Right. So, but my thing is like, what I just want to, and then when I want to bring you into some other segments and let you talk about your show, but I just wondering, what is this poll? The process of the polls, is it an archaic system? Is there no news? Like, are they not reaching people? Is it just Fox News? What is it we keep getting these polls that are so off and so wrong and drive the news cycle more than the actual information in the news? As you said, we expect our fourth estate to actually abide by why they have their constitutional protections in the first place, to be able to give the informed voters information they need to make a decision. So if we're not allowed to have that and make an informed decision, all that's happening is a loop of information is being exchanged, right? And inside that loop, where they'll go talk to a voter in Trump land who said, yeah, I think this. And what all they're spewing out is the thing they just heard the news person say, and then the news person say, well, this is what they're thinking. And then so it seems like the only objective data to come in are these polls, but it's not objective. So what are these polls?
No. And listen, by the way, there are plenty of diners around here in Ohio that I go to. Let them come fucking talk to me instead of like some neo-Nazi in Dayton, or some shit. I'm tired of any case, I'll get past that. So,
but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy the way they're doing it.
Is, yes.
And the only outside data they're paying attention to are the polls, and the only, because there's no investigative reporting anymore, and they're not just doing the job of just giving the information. This is what this candidate is up for. This is what this candidate's up for. They're not doing that. They're just cycling opinions over and over and over again.
It's the laziest shit in the world, right?
They're Dave Chappelling it. And so what is happening with the is there a better way to do polls, or do we just stop listeing to them altogether?
Which, by the way, I'll say quickly, Dave Chappelle only lives like an hour from me here in Ohio. So
okay,
I can go to Yellow Springs and visit him. And, if we decide that that's a segment.
Give him a piece of our mind.
I can go and myself, being someone of not religious at all, but of largely, there's a little intermixing in there, but largely Jewish extraction. I'd be like, what's up, man? What the fuck? You're talking trash about? I mean, yeah, mean, you didn't have to tell people that I own Hollywood. You know, we could have kept that secret for at least another 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So the problem is, and I first worked in the polling industry, and it did used to work, right? But it's like, it reminds me of these guys, and I did work on Wall Street for 2 years out of school, believe it or not, of like, you know, these guys I met, and they were already like these old dogs, you know, in the 90s who were like, would tell you stories about the late 70s or 80s. And when they were like, yeah, we cold call, and like every third person would invest in stocks because nobody was doing, right? They were the ones who got there, and like people weren't getting all these crazy marketing calls, and they were some of the ones that pioneered this stuff. Well, with polling, it was the same thing. You weren't getting a gazillion calls at home, so people actually answered and kind of wanted to talk to somebody who, you know, that was part A. Part B is like everybody had a home phone. We didn't have these things called cell phones. I know for all you younger folks out there, it's going to be hard to imagine. But if I told you the number of things, I'm a Gen Xer, so my life has been split into two parts. And if I could tell you the early part of my life, the things I had to suffer through, you know, without a smartphone to look at, you would think it was torture at this point. And so, but in all seriousness, so, I mean, there's plenty of people, we don't have a home phone here. I mean, there's plenty of people that just have cell phones, and a lot of folks who are Gen Z are not answering. They don't want to talk to these guys, and I don't blame them. I don't answer either. So that's skewing it all on top of it. And then you add in the third factor that polls are meant to predict who's likely to vote. So from the beginning, when you're doing these sort of screening questions, you're saying, are you 18 and eligible to vote in the United States, right? That's generally your first screening question. Okay, yes, you are. So we'll keep going. Have you voted in the last 2 general elections? And if you say no, then at that point, depending on who's doing the poll, we're either hanging up on you, or we're going to continue to talk to you, but we're going to consider you an unlikely voter, right? You're a registered voter, but you're not likely. And that all gets turned on its head when you have this generation that's become whatever you want to call it, politicized, radicalized by all this crap going on. So you've got these, you know, folks who are 18 or they're 21 or they're 23, or they haven't necessarily been able to vote in the last 2 elections, or they just haven't, right? Because they're turned 26 and suddenly they're like, holy shit, the Dobbs decision or whatever, and they hadn't voted before. And so these polls don't capture that. You know what I mean? So they're failing on multiple levels. They're failing.
Is it responsible? Is it responsible for any news outlet to use them there if they're failed?
Not, you know, I mean, is it responsible for them to mention them and then mention 15 other factors going on? Like anytime they had mentioned one of these polls, they should have mentioned that Pennsylvania, to pick one place at one point, had record-breaking Gen Z registration going on. That the turnout in Kansas for the abortion referendum, Gen Z broke a record, not just for like an off, you know, year or off sort of November election, for any election. They broke a record for their turnout. Well, that would have been worth mentioning alongside the poll. If you really want to give people, you can say, well, yeah, the polling is saying this, but we think it may be missing some things because look at all this other evidence we have. Then I'm okay with them mentioning the polls.
Right.
But like, you got to give people the whole picture. When you're acting like these polls that are going against previous results that year, that are going against registration numbers you're seeing, and God, you know, there are a lot of women out there that are fucking pissed about what happened with Dobbs. You're clearly not capturing them either. Like, you know, if you're not telling people that, then you're committing malpractice.
I think so too. Yeah, and I think people are listening and staying home. I think there's a certain slice of that, and our wonderful speaker was one of the few people who had the guts to go to say that right to the news folks. It was like the way you're doing this is you're discouraging people. And that's a certain factor, right? That's certainly
Let me throw the one more thing out too. And I'm sorry, I'm not just sitting here trying to pick on Nate Silver, not that he doesn't deserve it, but like his reaction was just so telling when people brought up, like, you know, Republicans game everything. We should game more things. We should fight back harder. Frankly, we should play dirtier. I can think of 50. I mean, if you're up to me right now, I'd be investing money in having people start Facebook groups with DeSantis, you know, fake DeSantis attacking Trump and fake Trump attacking DeSantis.
That'd be amazing.
McConnell attacking Thiel and Thiel attacking McConnell. Just get them all into, you know, they all hate each other already. So fucking just, you know, throw some embers, you know, throw some gasoline into the conflagration, right? But we don't do that because that's another conversation for another time. We're cautious. We're everything that you could tell we are by that Merrick Garland decision today. We're by the book. We're very proper. We're very, and so, and so, like they do. So what do they do? And they realize they can game the polling thing too. They've got like 5 or 6 partisan outlets that put out these absolute piece of shit polls that aren't supposed to be anything close to reality. And then Nate counts them in his total. And when people are like, how can you do that when you know these things are absolute garbage? They're constantly wrong. They're off by 5 points every election. He's like, well, if Democrats want to do, they could do that too. And it's like, that's not your fucking answer to that question. Your answer to that question is, if you're trying to get the most accurate numbers to people, how can that be your answer? Like, well, they're not doing it, so I can't help it. Or, how about like, I actually have some pride in getting things right, so I'm gonna look at the ones that I know are absolute garbage. I mean, there are some ones that are being biased because the people who are looking at them are not very bright or doing a bad job, and that's one thing. But then there are people who purposely are giving you shit numbers. And how can you count
because they know you'll carry it?
Right.
He's not. Maybe we can finally vote him out as well. Just so
off the island.
Off the island. He's going. All right. I want to
Nate silver medalist. The other point
coming in second.
The other point to make, though, and Cliff, you brought this up at the beginning, is how shit the media has been with all this stuff. Because if we were in a news meeting right now at one of these papers at the New York Times, and they just listened to everything we said, somebody there would be like, okay, we need to write about Ron DeSantis. How does this affect Ron? Didn't Ron DeSantis, wasn't he great? Didn't he win by a lot in Florida?
Yep.
We need to write about that,
Yep.
And it's like, we do not have to write about that. Fuck that guy. And why, if we're going to write about him, why are we not writing about Gretchen Whitmer, who also won by a lot in Michigan, and her achievement was a lot.
You see her getting any of that credit anywhere, considering she really should be being talked about as a national candidate at this point. That she's that talented, and that, she's got everything. And disclosure, she was a client of mine this time around. I did help raise some funds for her.
Good for you.
I should say that stuff. And I saw somebody in there, a non-client of mine, who I can say something about, because somebody in there in the chat, Chunkles, I like the name, said Laura Kelly. Okay, cool. Brought up Laura Kelly, and like what she did in Kansas is amazing too, and that is worth, So I mean, and Ron DeSantis getting all that. Look, Ron DeSantis probably ignored the Florida Constitution and single-handedly went and redistricted, which I don't know how the hell he can do that, and probably cost us some seats. But also, as you know, when seats are gerrymandered, it leads to less turnout, because people are like, I don't have as much of a reason to turn out. I can't vote for a congress. So he cost us votes there. You saw those videos, that one that just it had to break your heart, because it looked out of Jim Crow with his cops going to that African-American man's house and harassing him for voting. I mean, how much of Ron DeSantis's wins were due to that? Gretchen Whitmer wasn't doing that, wasn't saying, hey, let's go find white working class people that probably aren't as likely to vote for me and not let them vote, who have Trump signs up in their, yards. I mean, Laura Kelly wasn't doing it. So, I mean, like bring the context to it. You want to write a story on DeSantis afterwards? Fine. Write the whole damn story. Tell people who the guy really is. But he's
JFK. He's JFK incarnate, and his wife. They're like, it's the new Camelot, man.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Pudgy Camelot.
JFK had a lobotomy.
All right. All right, Cliff. We want to bring in, because we have got a great. Yeah, you going to stick with us here for our next for the rest.
I will, unless you kick me out.
No, we'd love to have
we
you.
We don't kick out. That's not how we roll.
Before we move on, because we've got a lot. We've still got some segments and we've got some announcements. I want everybody to know where they can find you, what you got going on. Let everybody know about your, you can get a lot of Cliff on YouTube, and you'll love it. Everyone here that follows us, you're going to love Cliff's YouTube.
Well,
so let everybody know.
I mean, right there, if people look at they can see the YouTube channel. It says youtube.com/it's C as in Cliff, Schecter, which is SCHECTER. We chucked the second H off on the boat over, so it's spelled differently than some of the others. But if you look up my name, you can find me there. Channel has been growing and it's been fun, and I do these commentaries. I mean, if you like what I just had to say here, I tend to say it with the same passion and the same number of swear words and obnoxious jokes. So if you dug that, you'll probably like what I'm doing over there. So
Right
that's
on.
on YouTube, where I'm still at Cliff Schecter on Twitter as of this moment. In an hour, I may be in the ether, as the rest of Twitter may be, looking around at various other options right now.
Yeah.
It's still up right now.
I mean,
It's still
I'm
up.
not going to
It's
tell you
still
where
up.
to find me on LinkedIn. I don't think that's very sexy. So those are probably, I've got a big email list, but that's a long thing. So, those two places for now. There'll be other places in the future. Who the hell knows? Maybe I'll have to start TikToking, like the kids do. Maybe I'll Snapchat.
And if all else fails, there's a diner in Ohio where we can find you. That's
There we go.
Yeah.
Way to land the plane. All right. Well, stick around. We're going to bring in.
Yeah, really just.
Yeah, everybody's got it. I think we're going to bring in. We have a little intro. We've got a regular contributor here who is back. We haven't seen her for a little bit. So roll the tape. Roll the intro. Dana, Lysis, Danalysis. Analysis with Dana.
You are so funny. Every time I see that, I'm like, wow, who was that girl? I look so much better than my eyes are too.
Welcome back, Dana.
Hi, I hope there's nothing behind me. My dog's been trying to get in here, and he just had surgery, so he's kind of wandering around in an anesthesia.
Jake, poor Jake.
So I'll try to keep it simple. I guess I'm on here to talk about my favorite person, Elon Musk. Somebody that it's been driving me crazy for almost like 4 years. And anything you want me to you want to lead me into this or something? Because
I want everybody to know I reached out to Dana.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I like the tweets about that.
So Dana, it says Dana, we'll look at something that's currently that we're going on. And I've known Dana for years now. She's one of the best at this. And she'll go in and say, okay, I'm going to figure out what is this thing? What's going on here with this thing? And she digs in. This is there's a former big global senior vice president of marketing for a major conglomerate. So you've got creds, you know how to look at information, you know how to, you've got all that experience behind you of analysis and looking, especially in the corporate sector, I think figuring out what's real and what's not real and what's a bunch of horse shit and what's not. So I'm always like, okay, we need just Dana's thoughts, and I will prepare everybody that usually you end up with like, I don't know, like, we end up like throwing our hands up and like, okay, I just did all that analysis, but who fucking knows? So I wanted to. There's so much going on about Elon and what are his motivations, and did he really get into this to kill Twitter? And
why is he a genius?
All the speculation about him that way. But what you and I discussed with you, and what you really latched on that I thought was fascinating was this is what Tesla really is. Like, this is what the investment structure is with it. This is how he gained this guy. And it shows you more than anything else who and what this man is. He's a con man. He's a gamer. He's got one of those minds that's almost criminal in terms of being able to, not that it's genius, but if you don't have any morals, you don't have any ethics, and you're looking at a set of things and you have a lot of power, a lot of money behind you, it seems that his question as he comes in is like, what can I get away with here? Like, it's not, let me build something of value. It's like, how can I game this system? Right. So you had a great way of looking at it. Like, well, this is how he gamed the system just with Tesla. Let's just take that for an example. How did he game the system with Tesla? What really is Tesla?
Well, he's been gaming that Tesla business for years since he bought into it. He wasn't a founder. I mean, that's one of the first things we need to know. He bought into it, so he had the largest shareholder segment of that business, and by 2009 he became a CEO and is like, fuck you, everybody, you're out. Like, everybody left that was part of it. Something he does in almost every business he has. And then what he did is he complained about government subsidies. I'm not going to take them. I'm not going to do them. I don't want them. But what does he do? California is one of the best of the best in terms of energy credits that they give to businesses who want to develop zero emission vehicles. They literally give you credits if you produce more energy efficient vehicles, especially electric than anyone else. And those credits help reduce or help subsidize the cost of building it, right?
Right.
And so for the last, God, I don't know, since 2009 when it first came out, but now he's going to put $1.6 billion on his bottom line as profit because he sells these energy credits overseas to China, to Volkswagen, to people who are still gas guzzling, making vehicles that do this, because he's almost helping keep them, making them still build these cars. And these energy credits are tradable legally, and they can be sold legally. So he made he's gotten 753,000 credits. Why? Because he's 100% electric. He doesn't make any gas cars. And so he ends up selling these for like $3,500 a piece to anyone who needs them. And it, one, keeps them making gas guzzling cars. And two, it's supposed to help them offset it. But he partners overseas with China, Germany, Fiat, everybody. And he sells them in around the US too. So not only does he complain about it, but then he's doing it himself. And
Right.
when Gavin Newsom, if you remember, I don't know, was it a few months ago last year, Gavin Newsom talked about how much Musk benefited from this program and that he actually helped him become a billionaire. Musk got all huffy, like, oh, you know, that's not true. I'm moving my corporate headquarters to Texas. Well, he did. He moved that, but he's still building in California. Why? Because he gets energy credits.
Right.
And he's going to increase production by 50%. But nobody really says anything about it. And I had to go through 200 articles to try to get to the meat of the story as to why that's just one thing he does. But the other thing,
yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you going to bring in that part of those articles? Because that's another way he's gaming the system as a CEO.
It's because of those 200 articles I read today from like 2004, 1990, up to today, just like an hour ago, 96% of them were a positive take on this visionary. I'm a genius. Is he a jerk? Yeah, but he's an innovative jerk. Do we love him? No, but he's a good guy. And let's keep buying his fucking cars, which are ugly in my opinion. And then
explode randomly.
You know, and now they're so expensive that the low-cost car, which is supposed to be for people like you and me, you know, I'm a retired person now. Those cars are too expensive that they can't even get the rebates anymore from California because they are too expensive. The cap is at 45,000. They're at 46 to 68,000.
Right.
So people can't even benefit from what he benefits from. Yet he's out there complaining about everything, and he fucking buys Twitter. And what's he doing to Twitter? Trying to make it a better Twitter? I want it to be 2.0 Twitter because I know more than you do. But I tweeted, I think you and I talked about this, LB, that he, you know, I looked at that from a merger and acquisition perspective because that's what I did. And I thought, what the fuck is this guy doing? He doesn't even have a business plan as to what he's going to do. And even when you acquire a company, you always get rid of a few people and you move some things around because that's what your plan is. And you try to keep the most knowledgeable people in the business because you need to know what they know.
Yeah.
And instead he's firing everybody and he's getting the support from the media. All they do is talk about him. And he has a platform where all he does is, I see him almost everywhere in my feed now. It's like they fucked around with the algorithm and I have to look at him all the time unless I mute him. Yeah. But I have to see what stupid things he's trying to say.
Because you were coming on our show.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm venting. My husband knows when he talks about this, but the myth about him is completely a myth. And I look at it this way. I started thinking about the Peter Pan, you know, how Peter Pan was. Remember when Peter Pan said, all you need is faith, trust, and a little bit of fairy, you know, pixie dust?
Yeah.
Anything can happen. And that's exactly how he is. He's Trumpian in so many ways. He's built this brand that he creates in this bubble and vacuum. And every reporter or people write books about him. And they make money and he makes money and he pays for zero of it. Where's he paying? He didn't pay for any of this. He gets free advertising. He appropriates other things like mannerisms and sayings, and he's at tech talks, and he's doing all these things. But my God, how is everybody believing this man is a genius? He's just a guy he's erratic. He's not remarkable. He's slept around with everybody. He's fathered children with employees of his company. And people are like, he's a genius. We're going to Mars. And you know, the first time the people at Tesla Motors met him was at a Mars Society meeting. They were at a convention that's held every year. And those two owners really believed that people ought to go to Mars, those two original men. And Musk bought into that program a year later. And he bought all the shares he could. He was a major shareholder and he became the CEO. So he never founded it. The other thing about SpaceX is that, you know, he created it. I'm going to give him credit for that. Not too many people are into rockets, but he is. And he literally went to fucking Russia to buy a rocket because he thought they'd sell it to him, but he complained about the prices. And on the way home on the plane, he bought a book and he learned everything he knew about rocket science.
Right.
Wow.
And
what a genius.
You know, like,
What
and they write this stuff and they both, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
And
they believe this myth. He created a myth.
Yeah.
It's just myth making. And it's not hard to do myth making. And you know who doesn't do myth making? Actual geniuses.
Yes,
they don't do that.
I
They
know.
don't
And
do
then
that.
people are following this fucker. I
Right.
don't understand it.
It's a gullibility that we have, especially in this society, but it seems to be a global gullibility of you know, there'll be this one. I mean, Greg and I we're going to have to do another Musk segment on another show. Well, I'll do my
I know. We're running out of time, but
no.
boy,
But I'll do my underoo rant for you guys because he's just all I see is a 10-year-old still wearing his underoos. And that's all I can see with Elon Musk, and a lack of parenting whatsoever. And this is why we're stuck with this guy that's just learned that he can go around and say shit and make up shit and whatever, and people will believe it because he's weird, he's odd, and that's what we do with our weird odd children. Yeah,
he's
But it's
taking
also
stock.
this is what
And
it
the
is.
SEC's after him, and they want to make sure his.
All right, so I want to talk about that real quick before we move. Greg, you had something to say, and then I
I
want
was
to.
just going to say it's because of the pixie dust. The pixie dust is actually made of ground up emeralds from his father's mine. I mean, I don't think it could be said enough that like his father owned a fucking emerald mine. Like my dad was before he retired was a claims adjuster at an insurance company.
Yeah.
His dad owned a fucking emerald mine. Who owns an emerald mine? Apartheid flag, right? Okay. And
All right, so,
I am all for Elon Musk going to Mars. I think the
I am
sooner this can be
too.
accomplished,
I
the
want him to
better.
go and do whatever he wants to do.
I want him to go on a Tesla rocket.
Go with God and go quickly.
Go.
Preferably
Anyway.
by Circus
From
Cannon
Russia.
if we can make that happen.
Circus Cannon is perfect. All right, so Dana, explain to everybody what the SEC investigation actually is as quickly as we can wrap that, because I know everyone's like, oh, the SEC is after him, but no one's really reporting.
Yeah, a couple of years ago it started because he tweeted out that Saudis were going to buy him for $420 a share when his stock price was like at 109. And by November it was at 406. But then the SEC says, no. You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that because it's going to mess with the stock price. So he was manipulating the stock. He got fined and they put him on one of those schedules of governance and compliance. We're going to check in on you all the time. And then the energy credit thing, he put it on the bottom line as profits. And you can't line it with the same sales because it's an intangible asset. It has to be put in a different place because it could screw up the metrics for investors on the stock price. And it probably did. I bet it did. And so now they're back looking at his governance and compliance on that. And so the SEC has never had a really good group. Trump tried to not hire people to, he kept it at like 4 people. And now it's Biden, it's like 4-1 Democrats. And now they're going after it. They're spending that time. But he continues to get into trouble. Now he's got Congress after him because of the shitty tweets he's sending out about Twitter. I mean, the guy In my opinion, and this is what I'll say. In my opinion, I don't think he's trying to tank Twitter. I really think he's trying to make it better, but he doesn't know how to make it better because he has no plan. And he has no plan because he's not an organized person. He's just somebody who tells you what to do. And now he's finding out that nobody wants to be told what to do because he lost 1,300 people today. And a lot of them were all for infrastructure. So he's got a plan, but I don't know where it's going. But I don't think I trust having an auto engineer working on the software for the infrastructure that supports Twitter and everything that goes on. I think that's a real problem. So I don't know what'll happen to Twitter. I have a feeling he's going to be more, I think there'll be more investigations than there should be. And that people just got to get off this guy. I mean, he's a shitty human being. He may seem like he's not because he builds rockets, right? He builds rockets. So but he's a shitty person, and shitty people, usually you see it with Trump. It took how many years for everybody to finally see the kind of person he was? And it's going to happen to Musk too, but it's going to take a little bit as a slower roll, you know.
People always think, you know, it was like with the Trump stuff. Oh, you know, he'll be presidential. Oh, he seems like he's becoming presidential. And it's the same thing with Musk. You can tell, like, he can't control himself. He has no impulse control.
No, he
Otherwise,
doesn't.
he wouldn't say that stupid shit that he says on there. So, I mean, like, to think that he's going to change it's like the people who believe Trump was going to change. There are people that cannot change. They are who they are. And in these two guys' cases, it's antisocial personality disorder.
I mean, they both do. They tell us who they are every day. And at some point, we got to believe them because it's only going to get worse. And I could go on about Musk. I've got so many binders and reams of information.
This is great.
But hopefully that kind of spells out the small part of what we talked about.
This is wonderful. I could listen to this all night.
I know, I can too.
I feel like, you know, to your point,
when I found out he went to Russia to buy rockets, I thought, oh my God, this guy is full of shit.
This is the day that Elon Musk became CEO of Twitter. You know, like
there you go.
This is Dan Jones to say it, right?
Good job.
By the way,
go ahead. Yeah.
One more. You mentioned the stock price at 420 when he was going to sell it to the Saudis, which at the time I owned.
It was at 109.
Right, I know. I owned it. I had like 5 shares, and then it split. It was fucking great. But 420.
Yeah, of course.
That's it. He's a fucking child.
I know.
Right.
He can't. He's so has no impulse control, unpredictability. He's just like Peter Pan. He never wants to grow up. He just wants to walk around and tell people what to do. Bring in a singular Twitter.
I'm gonna do this. I think that even gives him way too much credit, Dana.
It
I think
does.
giving him too much credit to say he's a Peter Pan or whatnot. He doesn't know that he's a Peter Pan. He doesn't know that he's not adult. He doesn't know. He doesn't have a self-observing ego on any level, which every genius does have. So it's just here's the thing. I want to say this, and I think I got an echo. So Dana, maybe mute me while I'm or your mic a little bit there. I think it's feeding back on your mic. But I want to say this for looking at what's going to happen on Twitter, because that's where our community comes from. Obviously, that's where we all built big accounts. That's what, you know, we all felt like we were spending all of that time, all of the activism, all the passion for Greg and I, for you guys as well, creating content, Dana, putting your research up, Cliff, coming up with ads and semantics and stuff and using it as you could as a political voice, connecting, building communities, building networks of people. We thought it was our house. We thought we created a little house for ourselves and we owned it and we were building something. And I think what everyone realizes now with these social media platforms, as they are constituted with Twitter and Facebook, is actually you're a renter. Everybody, we've all just been renters. We thought we owned, but we've just been renting. And guess what? A new landlord has taken over. And it's a slumlord, and he's bringing in the cockroaches and the vermin, and he's fired the gardeners, and he's like the plumbing is out and there's no one to fix it because the streets have been, he actually owns a whole goddamn block and all the streets are blocked off from anybody coming in and helping. And he doesn't pay his bills and he's fraudulent and he's violent and attacking people. And it's like, and kicking people out that don't deserve to be kicked out. And then bringing others in that like are actually going to hunt us down to harm us because that's how he gets his kicks. We don't own any of this. This is the problem. So I do think that there's a shift. This is what no one realizes, that we have a disruption happening, or I haven't seen anybody talk about this. I was part of the first great disruption in the space, which was the World Wide Web at that time, when people were just figuring out emails and launched a company. And that was really, I don't think Web 2.0 was as much of disruption, even though we got these sites like social media sites and everything that came out of that. That was something where people kind of created an opportunity and got folks addicted to things, but it wasn't the space itself being disrupted in some way that was massive. This is a massive disruption. And once folks get their heads around that and framework around that, I don't know that anyone's going to want to go and sign up for onto some other billionaire site or some other site with people that are then just going to build something and sell it to that you don't know who the fuck they're going to sell it to. You need to know, if you're on someone's thing, who they are, what they are. You want a close relationship with your landlord, or go out and do your own thing. So that's sort of my little speech about where I think we're at in this moment and what the Twitter thing is. Now, he also, because he fired everybody, I know everyone's like, well, what does it really mean? And it was crashing. And the reason so many of us that either had companies before or versed in this in some way or had run companies like that, the reason we were all like, okay, we're going to kind of say our goodbyes or let everybody know where we're going right now, is because we don't know when this thing is going to stop. But at some point, this Twitter Tesla is going to either run out of juice,
Right.
or because there's no one there to recharge it, or it's going to hit a light bulb, or it's going to go off the site. There's nobody's in this. It's literally a driverless thing with no mechanics, no oversight, no nothing. And it's just going now based on the strength of what the people who are no longer there sort of built. But you'll start to see stuff breaking down. And he's also going to be bringing in 4chan. He is. The adult porn has already started. He said that he wants that. That's what when he says, I want free speech, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about B-room on 4chan. And if none of you have ever been in that and know what that actually was, it was very subversive when it started out. And then it got really corrupted and it became, it's very bad. And I don't mean bad in terms of, I don't like that kind of content. I mean, it's content that's highly weaponized to fuck with your brain in a way that you might not know. It radicalizes people. It causes a disassociative process with your emotional state. It literally churns out psychopaths. And this is what he's going to start happening. This is the kind of content that's going to be on there. You don't bring back Jordan Peterson if you're not, and those kind of characters, if you're not going in that direction with everything that he's sort of trolling and saying that he wants to do, and he's gleeful about it. There's also the sadism of reveling in the hatred that's about to flood, but it comes with child anime porn, right? It's like it comes with the stuff that you can't even imagine. People are just sitting there concocting because the spiders that they like throwing in the girls' tents to have everybody go, are actual chainsaws, and the people in the tent are really innocent. So this is what's also, it's not going to be the same space, even if it continues to keep running. It's going to be incredibly, there's not even a word for it. It's going to be emotionally violent and intellectually violent. And I recommend everybody.
It's like, remember when Marty goes back to the Future 2, and he comes back to the different.
That's right.
Different, and essentially it's they base the character on Donald Trump, but it's Biff Tannen having gotten rich through that book and all that, and it's basically just all criminals and prostitutes, and I mean that's what you're looking at. That's what Twitter will become. Yeah.
It's
All right, so
Potter,
on
it's
that note-
Potterville, but Potterville seemed actually kind of fun in the context.
On that note, I want to shift into our announcement.
Are we doing announcements now? Okay.
We're doing announcements. I'm not seeing our announcement buddies that maybe we're gonna be able to show up. I know they had stuff going on tonight, but in that vein and in this announcements, Greg and I want to just update everybody on our alternative spaces and
Mastodon?
what's
Are we
happening
going to
there.
talk about Mastodon now?
We can talk about Mastodon. We can talk about 5/8 channel. Let's
Okay.
talk. Yeah, whichever
Well,
one.
you did a whole preamble to Mastodon, so let's talk about Mastodon first.
Okay, so
So
with
here,
that thinking, Greg and I talked. I was like, I want my own server. Let's have our own server on Mastodon so that we can sort of set the rules. But also, I had joined Mastodon and I ended up on a server with someone running it, and I'm sure a lovely person. I don't know this person. I don't know if they're going to die. I don't know if they're going to what their thing is. There's great community rules in Mastodon, but I wasn't getting a response. It is a little bit slower, and it was just like, why don't we just have our own server? And
you know what it feels like to me. Okay?
Yeah, what does it feel
it
like?
feels like, like everybody goes to Hogwarts and there's like the sorting hat. I feel like it's that. It's like, oh, he's on Mastodon.social and he's on Toad.social and bless Dave Troy. But,
Yes.
And he's on this other one and I'm on Toot, which is ridiculously named and out of the Netherlands. And it's like, and what we're saying is fuck Hogwarts. We're starting our own wizard school.
That's right.
That's it. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah. The name of the thing is of our instance.
It's an instance.
It's an
right.
instance. That's the new word. It's so Star Trek-y, this jargon.
That's
right?
that's a interesting term for a.
Yeah.
In any case, go ahead.
The Mastodon instance. Mastodon, named for an animal that's extinct. Okay. Twitter should be called Mastodon because it's going extinct, right?
Yeah.
So okay,
Yeah.
so it's social.snorkler.com. Snorkler without the E, because who the fuck knows why? I don't know.
Nobody knows why we get rid of
LB,
the E. Fuck the
why-
E's.
Why is it called Snorkler?
Who the fuck
LB?
needs ease anyhow? Really?
Is that what they assign you? I mean,
Val
I don't
is-
know.
No, I went and got the Snorkler domain, and then we started.
Why Snorkler, LB?
All right, so Elon Musk inspired this. So Elon was doing this. What do you call a master who baits? Right? Remember that joke he did?
Oh,
Yeah, he's really funny. He's hilarious.
He's so funny.
420.
And then he came on and he showed a reflection of himself in this computer screen, but the shot was on the computer screen, and it showed a bunch of Mastodon accounts, and he's like, haha. And it was like, oh, I created a bunch of servers so that you guys would sign up and then I would still control you. That was the thing. And then he made a joke about what's all that on the screen, because this was the masturbating. He means he's masturbating and on the screen. And it was, I guess, his spreading his seed so prolifically over Mastodon or over on the screen that he had to wear snorkeler goggles. He had these goggles on, and I'm like, all right, snorkeler, I'm coming for you. So that's why I went out and got snorkeler. There we go. There's Chunks. I think he's started on. It's right now. This is who's on Snorkeler, social.snorkeler.com, and it's a Mastodon thing. So you're in the federated universe with Mastodon. You can talk and exchange with anybody. If you go to me or go to Greg, you'll see it's in my Twitter bios in there, and then we'll keep promoting it.
I don't even know how to change my server yet. I'm still trying to figure that fucking
we
thing out.
changed from our server over to yours?
I did it right before the show. So yes, you can do it, and it's not that hard. You just a couple of steps.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do it. I can see it.
Just stick in there with us, because we're learning and we're growing. It's new for us too, but we want you to know that we're not going anywhere. We're gonna make this work. It's gonna be okay. And it's myself and it's Greg Olaire, and then it's everybody. Hope you know Brett Petticord, who's in here often, who's an open source engineer from way back when, encoder and builder, and he actually knows the language that this Mastodon was originally built on. So, and he's just wonderful and brilliant and just a lovely, lovely human being. And then Aaron Harris, who is everybody knows as Clearing Fog on Twitter, who knows how to build out systems and do stuff, on the back end. That I think would be really it's us, and then it's Greg and I have just sort of coming in, I don't know, with some content and some logos and trying to make it a nice little community. Our number one rule is, because you can set your own rules too, and we do have some rules, no fighting. fighting, and don't bring your personal beefs on. And then we're good. Like, so if that's the kind of community you want, again, you're in the federated universe, so you can talk and exchange with anybody, just like it with Twitter. But locally for our server, those are the things that we request of you guys. We just want a nice, safe space to build community.
Thanks.
No, that's good. I'm going to have to Google how to do it, how to change.
We'll put that out. We'll post that and all that stuff.
We'll post
Send me an email.
I have figured out how to do it, so we'll have it in the public space.
Okay.
We launched it a little bit earlier than we thought. So it's live today. You can sign up today because of what is happening on Twitter. So just bear with us, but it'll be a nice, safe space, and it'll be hopefully very good and it's a solid. Macedon is solid, right? So we're just riding on something that's already built and tried and true.
Yeah. And then the second announcement, okay, so that's the Mastodon part of the announcement. The second part of the announcement is that this is our 27th episode somehow, which is basically we've been doing this for half a year, and we've been kind of seat of the pantsing it, I think, in a lot of ways, even though Chunk came in and did these wonderful graphics that look like it would take a normal human like months to do, and he's just banging this shit out, and it looks so great. And but we've been kind of making this up as we go along, and I think we wanted to figure out what the show was, and I think we know what the show is and what it's supposed to do. So we're going to launch these membership tiers, which they do on YouTube. It's something that you could do on YouTube. We're going to either do it right after the show or tomorrow. It's still, please subscribe. We want everybody to subscribe. I think you can't see it now, but if you're watching this later, I think there's a little button in the lower right corner. That's the little 8 ball. And if you scroll over it, the subscribe button will pop up. I don't know. Cliff, are you good at telling people how to subscribe? We suck at this. It's like the worst thing that we do.
I mean, I generally just say, hey, there's a subscribe button. If you go to this and you just click on
somewhere,
it.
there's a okay.
I mean, it usually is a little button up in the right-hand corner. At least I've seen it there when I go on. And I just tell people to subscribe and to turn on their notifications so they'll know when new content is there.
That's it. Notifications, the bell or whatever it is. So we want you to hit the bell. Everything's always going to be like free to watch the show and stuff like that. We're not trying to, And the lowest tier is $1.99 a month. So that's the lowest tier. We've come up with club-oriented names for these things.
Oh, yes.
I cannot remember what they are now.
I have forgotten them, but they'll be up there when they're.
Next time you drink, you'll remember. It's all good.
No, there's like velvet rope.
Velvet rope is the second one, and then the third one.
That was the one of
like
open
in
bar.
In the club.
Open bar.
Velvet rope, open bar. Yeah. So those are the levels. We're gonna launch this either later tonight or tomorrow. And just thank you everybody for the support. And at some point maybe that'll be tied into the snorkeler business. We're figuring this out as we go.
Who knows? Yeah.
And we just want to say thanks. No matter what, we appreciate everybody watching, all the great community that we've built up here, especially as honestly, I've been like freaked out for the last 2 weeks. I've been like kind of depressed about this. Like Twitter's been really great to me, and I've met so many everyone here in this space I have met through Twitter. Everyone. Brett Petticord lives in the town now where I live, but I met him on Twitter. Like this is just how it is. So to take that away is such it's such a violation. It's like it's I compared it to the Tower of Babel, but it's like he went into some lovely restaurant that we all hung out in and just was like, fuck this, and just jerked off all over it and then burned it down. And it's disgusting, and it's really gross. And there's a lot of like attitude on Twitter now, like, well, I don't care, this place sucks. And I don't think that it does. It's a communications tool, and it can be used for good or for evil. And that's just how all these things are. And for me personally, it's been the good has much outweighed the evil, and I think this fucking sucks. So we're trying to do our best to adapt to this changing environment. So thank you all for watching tonight and for supporting us and being with us and all that. All Okay, is that all for the announcements? I don't want to drag
I
on
think
too
that's
much.
it. There is like a little bell on the YouTube subscribe on the channel. When you subscribe, there's also a little bell that you can turn on for notifications. And so like if you forget the show, or maybe we're going to be pushing video out and creating shorts and all that kind of stuff. We've already started doing that a little bit. So I think also hit that bell for notifications, since we might lose Twitter. And then again, come join our server, or just on Mastodon, look for us on our server so that we can all follow each other. And we'll just build community. I did have somebody made a comment. I wanted to make sure I address it, of like, what does no personal beefs mean? If you have a personal beef with Elon Musk and you want to talk about that, that's fine. What we don't want is what we also saw on Twitter. Everybody here, especially Dana and I and Greg, in terms of being, for 6 years, we've all been doing this together. And we had a bigger community of people that were more closely collaborating. And a lot of that has disintegrated and have fallen apart, because within that community, people take their personal beefs that they have offline and bring it into the shared community and try to convince people to take sides on stuff. We just don't want any of that going on. And we will kick you off for it. We just will.
So much freaking drama.
We don't want it. That's not, I know people use Twitter. I've figured out that there's two really different core ways that people use Twitter. The core, and I don't mean that we don't all have a variety of this, but some people use it in a core way to have social, personal interactions with people. And some people use it in a core way to learn and grow and share information. And just sort of, you might be with strangers and never tweet with them again and move on. So I find that most of that behavior happens with the folks that the reason they use Twitter is because it's an extension of their personal relationships. And then when there's falling outs that happen there, they try to get the rest of the community to pick a side. So that's it. That's what I mean by that. I'm real clear about it. I've seen it. We've seen it. We've all seen it just disintegrate. Real networks and communities of people. And nobody wants that. No one wants the fighting and the infighting. Do you want to take a shot at Donald Trump? Go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you there. But that's just the one little extra rule we're bringing in on top of don't be a Nazi. Like we won't allow that. Yeah,
we don't allow that.
That's bad too.
That's bad too.
Clearly. I guess now we have to say it, right? We have to make clear that Nazi bad.
No, it's just going to be an accepted thing. You know, now
we have to. Oh, by the way, Nazi bad. Okay, so last topic of the night. We're gonna be quick on this. We can't leave without acknowledging the GOAT. And you know,
our final segment.
For those of you unfamiliar with sports lingo, GOAT in all caps stands for.
That's right.
As Cliff knows,
the
greatest of all time.
Yes.
This is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. No one, in my opinion, did more in the dark ages of this country for the 4 years of Trump than Nancy Pelosi. There was no one that I looked to personally more than her, who I knew was fighting for me and for democracy and for all of us, and doing it fearlessly at great personal risk, unafraid to look Trump in the eye and say things like, with this president, all roads lead to Putin. Unafraid to say, even today in her, or yesterday, whatever it was, in her farewell speech, I work with 3 presidents, and just it's actually 4, right? Just as if Trump doesn't exist. You know, unafraid to impeach the guy twice because that was necessary to do, and I'm sure that was a really hard decision historically. This is someone who, you know, as Kevin McCarthy or whatever moron GOPer is going to find out, it ain't easy to, you know, how many people are there in the House, Cliff? A lot, hundreds of it. Yeah, it's hard to get all these people on the same page, marching to the beat of the same drummer. Even a drummer as talented as Cliff's son. It's hard, okay? And Nancy Pelosi did it, and she did it well. And every major legislation done in the last 20 years is because of her. Okay, Obama.
She's a legend. Yeah, I would even say. I mean, she'll be remembered for eternity, like the manner in which the greatest legislators are.
I want her face on the money. Put her face on Get one of these slave owners off the bills and put her face on the money as soon as.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this whole thing about owning the libs, I really think you can reduce that down to figure out, like, why are they so obsessed with this? What is this? Where did this grievance come from? And I do think it's because Nancy Pelosi showed up as a real boss, right? Mommy came into what was the shit flinging playground and said, stop flinging your shit, and no, you can't, molest your cousin. And so we have a job to do here, and we're going to do our job. And you can see who was able to go, oh, okay. And kind of their brains could shift into an adult gear and realize they're there to do a job and get the job done and work with her. Right. And who was just like, well, no, I'm just here to fling shit and feel up the my friend's thing. Like what? No. Right. So, how dare mommy show up and see what we're actually really doing here? So that's I think, and their inability to actually match her legislative brilliance, her ability to do her job, is just professional jealousy. And it just turned into this thing of like, we're going to own you back. Well, why do you feel like you have to own us? Oh, is it because Nancy Pelosi's been owning you all this time? Is that really who owns who? Was it Nancy Pelosi? Yes, it was. She had their number. She put them in their place, put the dunce cap on them in the corner, right, with their buddy Elon, and marched us forward with real progress in this nation. Towards aspiring towards all of our ideals. Talk about somebody who understood her oath of office, who got the memo on what the job was and got it done. I don't think anybody will match this woman ever. I really don't. No one will ever come close to what she was able to accomplish. It's stunning. I'm so glad it was a woman. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. Well,
that's the other part, how difficult that was, because she was the first woman, and it didn't stop her. It didn't stop her in the slightest. She just kicked their asses.
She did.
Yeah.
She had all their numbers.
I'm proud that she's an Italian woman. Can I say that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can.
We have a lot of crappy Italian, with Giuliani and Manafort. We have a lot of bad Italians here. I'm glad that she's one of us. It's good. It makes me happy about that. So, I think we're very lucky to have her, and I think as this moment recedes from history, historians will look back on her and be like, holy shit, this woman kept this whole thing together, because she really did. She served as the de facto president in a lot of ways, certainly overseas during the Trump years, kind of assuring our allies and setting the tone. She was over in Ukraine, she was over in Taiwan recently. Like, she knows what she's doing, she knows what's important. And and also on the day of the insurrection, we've seen the footage of her day of the insurrection when they came to kill her. They came to kill
everybody else's life.
In control of everything that whole time. She was organizing, and all these other ones are just sort of hiding, and she was making shit happen.
It's we were lucky to have her, and I'm just
yay, Mom.
Yeah, you go. I hope she enjoys whatever she does next. She deserves it, And again, put her face on the money. That's what I say. I want her face on the money as soon as she's eligible. Which, I think you have to be dead to be eligible, but I don't want her to die. Let's years in the future. Yeah, years in the future this can happen. So, all right. I want to say thank you to Dana. Dana, when you email me and the D is like lowercase, so it says, I was like, who says Dana? Is that like an Indian name? Like, it keeps fooling me. Like, you're like a yoga retreat. That's like just the. Yeah. And I'd like to say that was great. The whole Elon Musk thing. Please come back and talk more about Elon Musk. Cliff, great to see you. I'm so glad you were able to come on this week.
Me too. Thank you.
Share all the thoughts. Again, the name of your show is, what's the name of the show? I have it written down.
I'll let you.
Tell me, what's the name of the show?
Oh, okay. I didn't want to interrupt. It's the Takedown.
Takedown. I have it written down.
And I put my name into.
It looks like my writing is so shitty that it looked like Taliban. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not called that.
I think that Manhattan.
That's my second show that I do afterwards, where I sort of sing,
private
sing
channel.
my odes to Ayman al-Zawahiri and talk about how much we miss Mullah Omar. Okay, I'm gonna stop before like some of this shit gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't do that. All right, so everybody, next week is Thanksgiving.
Yep.
We do plan on having a little bit of a show on Friday night, but that might cancel because we might get too much on Thanksgiving and not be recovered. Yeah. We always have that caveat for ourselves, even though we're pretty good at showing up every Friday. Or we might do something a little bit more private if we get our membership launched for members only. So keep an eye out, set that alert, subscribe, set that alert button, click the little bell, and we'll let you guys know here and on Twitter, and especially on our Snorkeler server over at Mastodon, social.snorkeler.com. We'll let you guys know what's going on next Friday. In the meantime, have the very best Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for. As much as there's a lot of doom and gloom, it seems like that's never going away. But really, we have something to be thankful for. I'm so thankful for everybody here on this panel and everyone in the audience. You guys really have enriched my life tremendously, and I'm going to be saying all my thanks around the family table this next week for all of you. So I'm really, really grateful.
Amen. And thank you to everybody who sent us the stickers and the stuff today and the support. We appreciate it. I'm still figuring out how to like put it on the screen as it comes, and I apologize if I don't, but we definitely appreciate it. We want to say thank you as well. Dana, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say thanks for having me on. It was great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yep.
Well, you get your own intro every time, lady. Cliff, we might have to make some music for you if you want to come back and be Maybe you're the next Nate Silver. Like we'll figure out, and maybe we'll do a little robotic intro where you can we'll get some animation and you can sweep him away. You can vacuum him up. Take the vacuum cleaner from Carrie Lake and just vacuum up Nate Silver.
I would very much enjoy that. Yes.
I think we should do Metallica, Cliff 'em all. I think that would be better.
That would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, there we go. We'll figure something out. But
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Good night. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Take care.